Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of eCoffee with Experts. I am your host, Matt Fraser. And on today, we're going to be talking with Avril Tomlin Hood about media buying secrets. She's going to share her experiences of buying media, her methods and tactics that your competition doesn't want you to know about. Now, Avril is the head of digital marketing and media at Idea Rebel, a full-service digital marketing and web development agency headquartered in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And she holds a BA from the Simon Fraser University. She has 15 years of experience in planning, managing, and executing integrated marketing and media campaigns for a wide variety of clients. Highly relationship-oriented and solutions-focused, she is dedicated to delivering exemplary client service while leading successful campaign processes from beginning to end. When not working on marketing campaigns for clients, Avril enjoys doing lots of yoga, traveling, time with her family, human and canines. Avril, thank you so much. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, it's a pleasure. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, how did this whole focus on getting into media buying come about?
I think like a lot of good things in life by accident.
Okay.
My degree, you mentioned SFU in communications. And I actually had a narrowed focus in media education. So I was initially interested in more of the educational arena in terms of media literacy. But, twists and turns and different experiences ended up leading me to working in media. So in advertising in particular. So historically I've worked in PR and event management and some more traditional marketing. So this was maybe back in, earlier 2000s. So digital was at a different stage. So I about 2010, I would say 2012, I ended up partnering with a woman and working for her media buying agency and learned a whole heck of a lot about the industry from that side of things. So we worked across all verticals, all industry verticals. So tons of experience that I gained working in sports and entertainment, in travel and tourism was a really big part of our business. CPG, so consumer packaged goods, apparel, food and beverage. So ton of experience. We were a little agency, a little media buying shop, and we sort of took anything that was thrown at us. So that was excellent learning curve. So I learned how to do kind of everything from ground up, from creative worksheets to UTM building to little nitty gritty tasks of media buying, all the way up to strategy and planning and directing teams ultimately. So a bit of a circuitous route ultimately, but about 10 years ago I ended up in media buying, and that's been my specialty ever since.
Now, when we're talking about media buying, just so our audience, I mean, I'm pretty sure we have a pretty sophisticated audience, but let's just pretend they're not. Just for the sake of being clear about what we're talking about here. How would you define media buying?
I would define, I think we talked about this in the pre-interview, and it's something that I see defined differently everywhere. And I think the way that most simplistically I would look at it or define it from an umbrella perspective is any ad space that is bought and sold is under the media buying market. So that could be Google PPC ads, pay-per-click, or it could be a billboard you see on the side of the highway, or a bus stop, or a television ad, or a programmatic display ad that you're served. So media buying is essentially the art and science, I would say, at 80% science, 20% art of negotiating and buying and then placing the right ads against the right audience in the right place at the right time.
So it could be Google ads, Facebook ads, because you're essentially using a certain budget to buy ad space and bid against other advertisers. It could be, display ads, programmatic ads, video ads, and even like you said, any place where you buy placement for ads, like magazines, even billboards, and whatever the case may be. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I think what's important to distinguish, and it's why it gets, the term gets used sometimes to just refer to programmatic.
Yeah, it does.
It does often, but I think there's different silos of expertise and different platforms and tactics within that are really their own business, their own unique area. So like a Google PPC expert, a paid search expert could very well only do that because it's such a specialized type of media buying. But I still call it media buying because you're still buying media placements, right? So, but often media buying gets referred to, or just programmatic is what people call media buying. So I do like to make the distinction, but
I guess it's I hear you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You were going to say a little bit.
Oh, pedantic.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. It's like there's different parts of, just as digital marketing is broken down into different segments of, search engine optimization and content marketing. And, there's different segments of these things. So there's different segments of media buying, in my opinion, as you have stated. Like anytime you're buying media, it's media buying. What drew you to it? Like, was it just happen chance, or what's made you stay in it, in being a media buyer, rather than what drew you to it? Because, like, let's be frank, you could switch to something else if you wanted to. There's it's like not like you're held hostage to a certain type of digital marketing. But what attracts you so much to this part of digital marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question, because what drew me to it, as I mentioned in the beginning, it was a bit more happenstance. I was interested in marketing as a general career, and I did a lot of marketing, and then I ended up, getting sort of stumbling upon media buying specifically, and I've stayed for all these years, this past decade, because I really like a couple things. I like the fact that it's always changing, so it's never boring. There's never an opportunity to get bored in digital marketing because things are moving so quickly. I mean, it's almost like we're I don't want to say struggling to catch up because that's the wrong word, but we're always sort of like jogging to catch up, because if you're not moving, you're dead in the water when it comes to this industry, right? Because technology changes so quickly, and there's so many exciting and new solutions on the market. I think it's also I like the puzzle of trying to figure out, what's what and what is like strategically the best fit for my clients, because there are so many options, so many players in the space, so many vendors. When we're speaking of programmatic specifically, that's different. I mean, we've got our big three: Facebook, Instagram, Amazon, Meta, Google, Amazon. And so it's never boring. And I do like that it's formulaic in the sense that you can, a lot of the time, it's more science than art, in that it's predictable, and that for the most part, if we follow the funnel, although that's a little bit outdated to call it a funnel, it's a little bit more non-linear consumer experience journey, I would say. Yeah. Of course. I mean, nothing is just like that anymore. It's multiple touch points across multiple journeys, really. And I like that it still does, to some degree. We can say, listen, we've seen over and over again, if we allocate a certain amount of budget to prospecting a certain number of customers using targeting that is proven and data that is legitimate, then we can guarantee with relative certainty a estimated result. So I do like the predictability of that, in the sense, which is funny because it's offset with the complete, almost, chaos and Wild West nature of the media buying industry, as I like to call it.
Yeah, I noticed that when I was at the car dealership, we were spending probably 50% of the budget on media buying, even more probably, in the sense of Google ads, Facebook ads, and programmatic, as well as other things. What do you think is, sorry, I forgot my question. What do you think is one of the fundamental strategies for effectively using getting into digital media buying? Or if I could clarify the question, what strategy do you find most effective, strategies in starting off your clients with digital media buying to be most effective?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that could be a million answers to that question.
Sure.
Depending on the different inputs, right? So it's also dependent on the particular needs and KPIs of a client. But as a general, yeah, for sure. I mean, it depends really. It always starts with what a client wants to achieve. And then we kind of work backwards from there. But I think to sort of answer in a very general way, the most important thing and the most important place from which to start is a foundation of solid brand marketing. So I think the problem that I see over and over again in the desire of a lot of businesses is, they want to spend a certain amount of money and they want input output. They want to put in money and get out money, and they want that formula to continue. And that formula can't continue if you're not taking a more holistic view of everything. So if you don't have a solid brand and assets aren't, like if the website is crap or the
glad we said
artwork
that in
in the or the artwork in the display ads or the Facebook ads, or the text copy is poorly written, or any of the brand content, there's no cohesiveness, if there's no clarity and no strategy and no like clarity around the brand. And then media buying it's like the final link in the chain. It's how we reach the customer with all that hopefully hard work that's been done to build the brand beforehand. If that foundation is not solid, then we can't do our jobs as media buyers, because we're not going to, we can get people to the site potentially, or we don't even get them to the site. So you can throw as much money in as you want. And then the other part of that is not the money in, money out expectation. Like, we have to look at, again, that funnel. So we can't just spend $100,000 a month in performance Google ads. So that might work for a while. So we have lots of clients where we come up against this. So that's been working for them for 3 months or 6 months or even a year, where they have been spending against a highly qualified audience, and we're driving them down the funnel, or we're driving them to convert because they're low down the funnel in intent campaigns. But we run out of people. So that again that's only one part of our funnel, so to speak. So it's really important to look at media buying within the holistic context of both the brand and then the media strategy. It's all holistic. It's like nothing occurs in a vacuum. And we do see that a lot. I think there's an expectation that that's what media buying should be. It's 100% science. It's discounting the 20%.
And you can't do that. Like, I understand what you're saying, because when I was at the dealership as the marketing director, like when I got there, they were taking as long as 60 days to get inventory merchandised and and pictures of vehicles on the website. And it was ridiculous. And so they were, it's like, you guys want me to spend money, but yet there's no pictures of the vehicles. There's no vehicle descriptions to tell people what the vehicles are. There's no videos to walk around videos, which is a bonus, but you're trying to drive traffic to something that isn't even going to convert. So it's a waste of money because you haven't got your assets. You haven't got your assets set up properly. So it's surprising to me that isn't a isolated instance from what I'm hearing you say, that a lot of businesses don't have their branding strong, or their strategy, or their website may be crap, or landing pages may be crap, or whatever the case may be. Is that a common thing? Like, they just don't have their foundation?
It's common with a certain size, but I mean, it can really, it doesn't have to be exclusive to smaller companies. I've seen lots of companies that don't invest or understand the importance of that. Or I think, and applies both to it applies to both of the things that I mentioned, the challenges in terms of not having the branding strong or the imagery strong, like that foundation, plus not taking the full funnel into account, is there's kind of a hesitancy or a fear to invest where there's not going to be an immediate return that's visible.
Okay.
And so that's what I observe from working with people and businesses in that regard. Like, oh no, we don't want to pay $50,000 to redo our website because that's $50,000 we can't account for when it comes to ROAS or return on ad spend or ROI. Like we can't immediately see the benefits of that. And why can't you just run some Google ads for us? And we know that you can just, like, it's media buying. You should be able to get results. But but I think we've gotten around that by we tend to advise very early on in a relationship with our clients. We manage expectations from the very beginning. So KPIs are established. And if someone a client has a unrealistic expectation of a KPI, then we're very clear and direct. Because we want to set ourselves up for success. And
absolutely.
So,
so I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on allocation of budget. For instance, I was doing 25% of the budget on Google ads, 25% on Facebook, and I can't remember how much I was doing on display and SEO, but have you found it to be different with every single client based on their needs, or is there a certain recommendation that you suggest, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a good question. I think that allocation of budgets, I approach it more firstly from a funnel perspective. So an allocation of budgets between awareness, consideration, intent, and conversion-driven campaigns, and then it's into the tactics. And in terms of that allocation, there's definitely no formula for that because it really, again, depends on KPIs. So we have clients that their products are, say, we have a flooring client, and their products are very visually, they're beautiful, creative, and it's very visual content that and it appeals to the DIY and the home renovators. And so Pinterest takes a big portion of that budget, more so than Facebook. But if they were a auto dealership, we would certainly not be advertising on Pinterest, or we might, I don't know, but depending on the KPI, we're looking to generate engagement with people's dream vehicles or something, dream boards or whatever, pin boards. I don't use Pinterest, but we work in it as a platform. So I think that question, it's very much dependent on that KPI question. So what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to, capture, people who are searching for tourism experiences? They're traveling from Seattle to Vancouver for the weekend, and they're going to be, things to do in Vancouver. And, we're going to account for that user journey. So really we'd start by looking at the funnel and allocate budgets percentage-wise against the funnel to ensure that we have robust and consistent feeding of the funnel. And then we look at what we can call it a day in the life experience. So we kind of put ourselves in the customer's shoes and we think, and that would dictate more the percentage breakdown of platforms as opposed to tactics and approaches. So if our customer is a female aged 34 who has no kids, who is a professional, who has a certain demo cycle profile, we look at that and then we place them in a media touch point model so we can allocate and strategize that way from that information that we create.
So I'm guessing that the best strategy or I'm just thinking based on what you've said here, number one, you need to have your solid brand. You need to have probably your personas figured out of who actually your customer is, which I'm learning many businesses don't figure that out. Sometimes they get very successful without even having that figured out yet. And then the customer journey. And so the whole plan of the strategy will actually depend upon the customer journey and developing those assets. Is it just a matter of I always have to relate this to cars because I worked in that industry for so long. Like the customer journey and it would eventually end up someone landing on a vehicle detail page of a specific vehicle that they wanted to buy. And if they didn't convert, we would retarget them. And ergo, we retargeted them with inventory ads on Facebook. And then we retargeted them with display ads, programmatic, with offers for a test drive offer. And so that's what dictated the creative. So is that the best strategy to go about? I guess I'm trying to figure out if I was doing it right all these years later.
Yeah,
because I had nobody coaching me. I was doing it on my own.
Flying by the seat of your pants. But no, that's about right in terms of trying to retain and re-engage and push down the funnel, right? So it's once someone has shown that level of intent based on all those things that we spoke about. So the funnel, the persona, the day in the life, and then, the getting ultimately people to the page where we want to encourage them to convert, whatever that may be. If it's book a test drive, enter their email information. If it's, a different industry
consultation,
make a purchase,
buy something.
Whatever it is, we define our KPI, we can define our conversion metrics. And then if someone gets very, very close, then retargeting is absolutely, I mean, I think when I meet people who, I have my friends joke that I'm the Chandler of our friends. I don't know if you have the reference from Friends, but no one ever knew what he did for a living.
And
I tell people, I say, when you're looking for a pair of shoes and you go and you look at them and you don't buy them, and then all these little ads follow you around the internet for the next week. That's what I do. I'm sorry.
But it's so effective. So really, businesses should be looking at what their conversions are on their websites. And I mean, to be frank, if I was to dig in and start looking at what the KPI should be, the first thing I would be looking at, hopefully, if they had them set up properly, would be the Google Ads goals, Google Analytics goals. Like, what are your goals? What are the goals for your website? Because that's going to, obviously, if it's an e-com play, or if it's a service-based business, or if it's consultation-based, but you know what I mean? Those things are really going to dictate what you're trying to do and what you're trying to fulfill in order to A, drive people to those pages, and B, retarget them with, I mean, when I say A, target them through like Google ads, paid ads, media buying, and then retargeting them through programmatic, or you don't even have to use programmatic just for retargeting. You can use it for outreach as well. So, but that would be a fair statement, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Google Analytics, setting up those conversion goals is essentially important, especially with e-commerce. And
critical.
Yeah, it's critical. And I think it really, my experience spans, it's so different. I mean, e-commerce, that is centrally critical. That is your hub, right? In terms of what you are building from and building towards. And then there are also, there are media buying campaigns where it's centrally important that we generate engagement amongst a target audience. In that case, we're not really looking at the Google Analytics insofar as setting up conversion like rules. It's more surface metrics on platforms. So it's just, again, it's like any platform can be a deep, for reach and impressions. Yes, we measure that if it's just a reach play. Like if a client just wants to get in front of as many eyeballs as possible. I mean, historically, like that's what was measured only. So when you buy television, when you buy broadcast, you're basically, I mean, it's different language. I won't get into that, and I can't speak to it too intelligently because I only have, enough working experience that I can get by, but I don't do it as an expertise. But it's reach. You're measuring impressions, which is very limited, and it still is in digital too, because you can't really go much beyond the fact that the ad was served. And yes, someone saw it. Maybe they didn't. Was it above the fold? Was it below the fold? It's gotten more sophisticated in the last 10 years for sure. And there's a lot less fraud around that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It used to be like the wild, wild west, didn't it? Now we're focusing on programmatic right now in regards to fraud and in regards to that whole thing. What are some of the metrics though that you have seen that you would suggest in regards to what we were just talking about are things people should consider for measurement?
In terms of measuring success, yeah. So pretty standard, we look at CTR, so that's click-through rate.
Okay.
If we're trying to drive people to a site and we're not necessarily like, it's maybe a secondary KPI as a purchase, but our primary KPI is to get traffic to the site, then we're looking at CTR. We always look at CTR because CTR is an indication that someone is interested enough to click on an ad. And I think they can vary greatly. You have to be careful when we're looking at CTR with mobile ads because those CTRs but they generally tend to be quite a bit higher. I had a colleague used to call that fat fingers because people accidentally click on mobile ads all the time. So, take those with a grain of salt.
Crap. But, and it costs you money.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can't, there's,
you can't.
Not a perfect
At least
science.
They saw your ad.
Yeah, they saw it maybe, but yes. So CTR, we do look at impressions, we look at reach, we look at time on site, we look at video view rates, we look at return on investment and return on ad spend, and we measure everything. What we're centrally focused on will depend on what the ultimate KPI of the client is and what we're trying to drive towards, because we're not going to pay too much attention to the click-through rate if our metric is awareness or engagement. Engagement clicks count as engagement, but it's not what we're going to be zeroed in on trying to improve. So our ad ops are not going to be focusing all their efforts on trying to get the click-through rate up if what our client wants us to do is brand awareness play and get a piece of creative in front of as many eyeballs as possible. Mm-hmm.
Which is hard when you go for the reach play and the brand awareness play. It's kind of hard. Like it's kind of like the back in the days of like the newspaper advertising or magazine advertising. It's kind of hard to tie that to ROI or ROAS, in my opinion. If you want to do that, that's great. Do you think that's the smartest? Do you think that's the smartest way to go about using programmatic in that regard, a brand awareness? Or even heck, you could do Facebook ads with brand awareness. Like
programmatic is not.
It's not, is it?
In terms of, well, it depends what. I think programmatic, that's another area that I get kind of pedantic about, because programmatic is technically how we buy like all ads that aren't contextual ads. So that's the system that is used it's the bidding system, right? So Facebook is programmatic on its back end.
It is, isn't it?
Right? Google is programmatic. But if we're talking about like programmatic display, like DSP, like demand side
let's talk about DSPs. Yes, that's what I want to talk about.
DSPs specifically?
Yes.
Just because,
please.
Then brand awareness, like unless it's where you're programmatically buying video through a DSP or native ads through a DSP, I would say those are good for brand awareness. But display ads, display banner ads programmatically bought should never just be used on their own to do anything. Generally we use them for, it's an assist. Yeah. We use them for retargeting like you did at the dealership.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You did it.
That's what I was trying to get to. Thank you. I was trying to find out, is it best that they are not secondary in the sense of it's like subpar marketing, but it's an assistant to another primary source of traffic is the best usage of using it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Very interesting. So we were spending about 10%. So I said you 25, 25, and 10. That's I don't know. Don't ask. Honestly, Avril, I have flipping no idea how I came up with that darn numbers.
But it worked.
I think it worked. It worked pretty good.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's still like the formula for across the board. I have no idea. Like there's so many different industries that you probably work in. That crap, you could probably tell me, there's certain companies spending maybe 20% on darn in DSP programmatic display. Like,
and we have clients like e-commerce heavy clients where we spend 70% on Google and 30% on Facebook, and that's it. And then we have a separate spend that's looked at as like an awareness-based spend where we're not measuring direct return on ad spend in the real time. We're measuring it over time with, brand lift measurements. And we allocate that to, budget to CTV and display mobile because it's not, going to be a great driver of conversion for us. And we know that also to your, the 25, 25, 10, you came up with it, you don't know how, but you tested it, right? And I think that is the central, exactly. And you tested it and it worked. So you kept doing what worked, and or if something didn't work, presumably you stopped doing that. So that's what we sell a service to our clients. Like that's what we're selling essentially. We're selling this expert ability on the back end to be constantly testing, pulling back, moving forward, deep right, deep left. We're very agile. As media buyers have to be good ones, because you're reading the data and then you're making informed decisions to capitalize on what's working, and putting aside what's not, or changing quickly.
Okay. So the part that data plays, because I love data. Like I don't believe it. Data has to be the foundation of everything we do. Yeah. So what are some of the ways that, number one, we can have proper data? So you had alluded to something earlier, which I'm also passionate about. And I'm going to have a guest on the show in a couple of weeks talking about just this very subject, UTM parameters.
Like we'll leave that to that guest then.
Yeah, I'll leave it to him. Well, it's Dan McGaw, just so everybody knows, the UTM.io. He owns that, or he's the UTM tool. I don't think he minded me sharing that because he agreed to come on. But I'm blown away, to be frank with you, at the minimal implementation of UTM links and UTM tagging, in my experience, from what I've seen. Either it doesn't exist or it's being done improperly. And when I say improperly, I won't get into that because I'll talk about it with Dan. But how important is it to properly, forget about properly, it has to be done properly, but how important without UTM links and proper UTM parameters with the tagging of your ads, when it comes to DSP programmatic display ads, I mean, if you don't do them properly, as far as I'm concerned, your attribution is going to be all messed up.
Yeah, you won't have attribution to measure.
You don't have anything. Yeah. Well, you might have you would general channel in Google Analytics that says something, but
display.
Nothing.
Sure.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, you could go into your source medium in Google Analytics, and you could see this came from a social ad, or this is referral, which could mean
it was crazy.
Anything.
So do you find that a lot of companies, because a lot of companies just want to get to get me the leads, get me the traffic, get me the conversions, get me to this, but they don't want to do the foundational work of, it takes a lot of thought. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it does take some thought process to go into developing a proper UTM tagging parameters and foundation for doing this. At least it did from when I was doing it. I had to do a lot of thinking, and doing that in that regard. So what I'm trying to say is, are there a lot of companies that just want to skip UTMs and just say, forget it? And what the hell are you talking about? Why are we bothering even with that? Why are you asking me this question?
Well, I think with UTMs, we can probably get around some of that as an agency, and that we just tell them this is our process, for the most part. For the most part, we'll come in and we'll say, this is our, operating procedure. Yeah. These are the things that we need from you. These are the things that we do. Non-negotiable. This is how we activate and optimize campaigns. So we do have, that being said, we do work with some clients in sensitive verticals. So they have some limitations around tracking and around measurement on their sites. And that's where we run into resistance with technologies like pixeling and UTM tracking. And so we have to do some sort of workaround stuff. I won't get into that. That's a whole other podcast, but it's for the most part, most clients, that's not been something we've come up against. I think also something that we do often is we third-party ad serve or anything programmatic for verification and for control on our back end. So we would use DV360. And so instead of just sending like we used to do, in the olden days, where we just send a publisher, aka a DSP, if we weren't buying it ourselves, we'd send them a folder full of banner ads, and we'd send them a Excel worksheet with all the UTMs that we created. And, you know, there's like a Google UTM builder. You could just plug in all your parameters, like campaign, creative, size, all that stuff. And we'd send them those too, and then they'd put them together, and then they'd serve them through the DSP. What is preferable when you're serving programmatic at all anymore is to use a third-party ad serving tool. So you actually input all of those unique parameters and the creative themselves, and that generates a set of third-party ad tags that you then send the publisher. So you send them the codes, and then they serve the codes, which translate into the ads when they're served. And then all that information is fed back through our central third-party ad serving system. So it eliminates the possibility for any sort of reporting discrepancy. And we can control what creatives we rotate in and out on the back end ourselves without having to send anything to another publisher. So that is maybe, so the third-party ad serving tag integrates the tracking codes that we need. And then UTMs we use specifically, like we input those manually in Facebook, Google. But for programmatic, third-party serve.
Sure. For programmatic, like what, you know what, when I was doing it, I found that I had a choice. I could either use Google's display network and their service or product, for lack of a better word, or I could use something like Retargeter or AdRoll or other such things like that. So I guess my question to you, is there any advantage to using staying within Google's ecosystem, as opposed to using something like Retargeter or AdRoll or other things like Traffic Oxygen is another one out there?
What a question.
I was told that I want to know if this is complete bullshit, and they can bleep that out. That a lot of publishers don't want to use Google. Like a lot of publishers out there don't want to use Google. They don't make as much money they make more money from partnering with third-party independent publishing networks like AdRoll or Retargeter, and therefore your audience reach could be bigger and your cost could be lower. But I mean, I only did this for one business in one vertical. You've been doing this for 10 years, so I would rather hear your expertise and thoughts on the subject.
We're in a really transitionary time, I think, around like anything to do with Google, anything to do with any of the big three in terms of, and when I say big three, I mean Meta, Google, and Amazon. Maybe, like things are shifting under our feet, essentially, because of. Before I would have said, absolutely, I use a third-party DSP for retargeting. Your reach is going to be higher, your cost is going to be lower. But Google is, as I'm sure most of your listeners are aware, if they're in the industry, is like everybody. The third-party cookie is no more, essentially, as of 2023. So the date keeps getting changed, but that's ultimately, I think, when it's going to happen. So these third-party DSPs are going to be essentially like cut off at the pass when it comes to accessing the behavioral data that they need to retarget effectively across Chrome, which is, I think it's at 80% of the market share right now.
Amazing when it comes, what they've done.
So it was like 60, 75, 80. I mean, I use it. I'm looking at it right now on my screen. So now my answer is different. It's, we're a little bit
I understand,
beholden to Google and its suite of products. Same in the same way we are to Facebook and to Amazon to some degree. But I also, I see changes in response to that. And I think in the next few years, we'll see potentially some shift in that dominance, that market dominance, that almost monopoly that Google has. But who knows? I'd be a lot richer if I had the answer to those questions.
For sure. Well, first of all, it was very insightful. I don't know if that's the right word, but Google used to pay Firefox and used to partner with Firefox and give them money for every search someone did on Google, and they stopped that. And they were very smart to build their own browser. Like someone had, there's a lot of stupid things Google has done, like Google Plus. But when it comes to building the Chrome browser and having the foresight to do that, they were very smart. Now they're kind of claiming that, this all they're sorry, but they're saying all this all in the name of privacy, and I say it's in the name of profit.
It's bullshit.
Total bullshit. Yes. I'm glad you
I don't know if I'm allowed to say
bullshit.
That. Yeah. Same with Apple. And I think anyone who will listen to me right now, I have some passionate things to say about the, I call it like the greenwashing of privacy claims that Google and Apple are doing. It's not, I understand they're marketers. I understand what marketers do, and they're positioning this as privacy concern. It's nothing to do with privacy. Sure, that's the consumer facing benefit, but that is not because that's not the motivation. The walls around their walled gardens are getting higher and higher and higher. The data that they're producing from within them is getting more robust. So their profits are increasing. It's what's happening. It's not because they truly care. Also, with anything with privacy, I think like they're under pressure. Like I don't know the exact number to date, but it's almost laughable how many current existing lawsuits are in play against Google by the US government on whatever level, like it's, in terms of privacy violations, antitrust stuff. There's lots of pressure coming from that. So like I say, it's like the ground is shifting under our feet. And amazing. Who knows? It could be 10 years before it's really different. It could be 5, it could not. Who knows? But things are moving.
Well, it's very affirming that you have agreed with me, because, I don't have this network of 5,000 people that I talk to that to know whether I'm full of crap or not. But anyway, moving on. So in this regard, how do you think it's like, I don't even know how it's going to change. Like, for instance, we're at such a pivotal point of knowing what's going to happen when when no more third-party cookies. Is there a way around it that you see or that you've heard of? Is it, for instance, I've heard of people using server-side tracking, putting your cookies right on the server rather than in the browser, and that way. But I don't know if that's logical or smart, or So I guess what I'm trying to say is, what other ways? Is there any way around it, or is it just we're gonna have to wait and see? Like, are these third-party DSPs going to be decimated and put out of business? Do you think we're going to see a lot of them going under?
I think. I think some for sure. I think some that have not moved over the last couple of years. There's been a long runway, so I think companies have been given time to pivot, or time to figure out solutions, or time to create strategic partnerships and alliances, or be acquired, or take their technology and apply it to another.
Different way,
in another area. But in general, I think that Google is in the midst of, I don't know what the most recent one. I know they came up with it was called Flock, privacy sandbox. Like they're working on developing a solution, quote unquote, to third-party cookie demise. So measurement tools that basically, the Flock was, and I think sorry, I can get long-winded here, but whoever was reviewing it from a privacy regulation standpoint threw it out and said, you can't use Flock because it's too similar to cookies. And Flock stood for Federation Learning of Cohorts. And it was basically Google saying, okay, well, you can't place third-party cookies, but what we're going to do is we're going to gather this. It's basically lookalikes to a certain degree, like model groups. That with cached IDs, and you could then buy against those audiences. But then the privacy regulators just said, no, you can't use that. So it was back to the drawing board, and they're in process of figuring out something to offer as a solution. So Google's working on something. There are all sorts of tech companies that are always working on something. You read about something new every day. You could drown in the amount of information out there, and companies that are doing this and that. I'm seeing as a trend also, which just makes me laugh, is especially because it's such a young industry, and that young people are in it, and it moves quickly, and articles on Digiday that are, what WTF is, and I can't remember what they called it, but it's like an acronym for a new measurement system. And it's basically no measurement system. It's like, it's what we used to use like a decade ago to measure performance. It's contextual advertising is making a big comeback. So things like private marketplace deals where you can buy against a whole bunch of publishers at once, but it's not programmatic. It's like the, marriage of you're programmatically activating a contextual buy. So a lot of things that everyone thought were going to be obsolete, that were useless, that were not, we're falling out of style, are all coming back again. Everything old is new again, because when we're left without this really significant and integral tool that we've been relying on for many, many years
now, over 10.
Over 10, then we're going back to what, used to work. And I don't think, to be honest, I think contextual advertising can be powerful. Like contextual advertising is how advertising always used to be, newspapers and billboards. And I think that there's something to that. It's definitely part of the funnel. And we've gotten really used to this luxury of kind of input, output, using data to get the results. And it's definitely changing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you think it, like, for instance, I'm not that against the current situation as it is. And what I mean by that, I find I get served ads that are relevant to me. I don't mind that. Like, I have literally found there are things that I have bought through being targeted on Facebook and Instagram, not so much Google, that I never would have known about, nor would I have purchased had I not been targeted. And I believe they were targeting me based on, my behavior, obviously.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are. I think it's going to make for a crappier experience. Maybe going backwards and being served shit ads that I don't, excuse my language, crappy ads that I don't want to see.
Yeah.
That are because they don't know anymore. And, but the thing is, I've looked at my Google profile. I don't know if people have done that, logged into their Google account and seen all the things that Google knows about you. I've done that and seen this, like, oh yeah, that's interesting. It's all pretty much true. I've maybe crossed out a few things. I'm like, no. So it seems to me, is Google going to be the only one that's going to be able to do that because they have first party data, or and are they going to, and Amazon, are they going to be the kings
Walmart.
of Walmart. Yeah. I guess anywhere you shop, Which brings
anywhere you shop, but also Walmart and Lowe's and Home Depot and other online retailers. I would not be surprised if Target was next, or are building their own e-commerce marketplace, DSPs. So that's the trend.
That's smart.
I see. Yes, very smart. And I just, instead of having these sort of three major walled gardens with kind of like low walls that everyone has historically been able to jump over and hop between, the walls are going to get higher and walled gardens are going to multiply. So they're just going to be more players in the space, like a Walmart or a Target, for instance. In terms of your question about like personally, I agree. I mean, I have this conversation with people all the time. Like, I would rather have personalized ads. I get annoyed when stuff is served to me that's irrelevant, when I'm mistargeted. I mean, I think everybody does. Like, people say it's creepy, but quite personally, I would rather have something useful being served to me. And I too have, even though I know how it works, I know they got my number, I know I'm in the pool that I'm in, and then and I'll buy a thing. But I think that it's also what people tend to not understand fully, if they're not in this world, is that there are paywalls that are going to start popping up a lot more frequently, because the reason so much of our content on the internet is freely accessible, is because of ad revenues. And so when publishers aren't receiving these ad revenue, people will have noticed this probably in the last couple of years, like Paywalls and all the major publishers that maybe didn't have them, or some that didn't have them before. It's harder to access that free content because that's what, the
they need to
economic engine was generated by. And so, I mean, I understand that. I don't have a problem with it. It's just, I think that there's like a lack of holistic understanding with what this data is used for. And it's not all like nefarious. And it's like, your name is not stashed in a
whole bunch of databases.
It's not personal in that way. It's profile based.
Profile. So, thank you. It's profile based. Yes. Yeah. It's mine. It's interesting how it'll be interesting to see how it changes and how you said that, there may be paywalls. And frankly, I don't even know if that's going to work because I don't know if people would be willing to pay. People would rather be it's interesting. I think people would rather be the product than pay. I could be out to lunch.
Well, it's like, I think it's sort of like, it'll be interesting to see when we talk about paywalls and ad supported content, like Netflix is coming out with an ad supported tier. They've actually partnered with Microsoft, which is interesting, worth digging into a little bit. And their DSP. And so that will be very interesting and indicator. Disney Plus is also working on an ad-supported streaming version. And, some people say like the people who are going to pay for the subscription are going to pay for it anyways because they don't want ads and they have the financial means to do so. It's just going to, create a whole another customer base.
I think they have to do something because what is their down price now? $16.99 or what started at $9.99 or whatever.
Oh, it was less than that. It used to be. I remember it was like $5. Yeah.
And I don't even know if they've made a whole ton of money. I mean, I don't look at their financials a lot, but I've read reports that say they're not very profitable. And so they had to monetize it they have to monetize it somehow. And so for people to be naive to think that they're not going to have another tier where you're either going to get the platform at that price subsidized with ads. Because that's been the draw of it has been, hey, there's no ads, but I don't think their business model works at charging people whatever they are without some kind of advertising implementation on the platform. It just, I just don't see it. I don't see it working. Like it's just there's not enough margin there. Because you and I both know. I mean, I build websites. I know how much servers cost. I say to my dad, I'm like, like they're paying Amazon for that infrastructure to have people all over the world watching that movie at the same time for $16.99 a month or whatever it is. I don't know what it is anymore. That's impossible. Like it's just not sustainable from a business model profit point of view. It's just not. So to be naive to think that, they're not going to have ads, it's just crazy. Like it doesn't surprise me that they're doing it. It doesn't surprise me that Disney's doing it. It doesn't surprise me at all. But I think that's going to be a huge opportunity, don't you think, for companies to be like, I mean, TV is dead. I mean, I don't want to be rude or anything. I mean, I don't know if it's. I mean, maybe I'm being melodramatic by saying it's dead, but it's definitely not as powerful as it used to be. Let's not dead. Not dead. I'm being overly presumptuous and melodramatic. It's not as effective as it used to be, but yet, man, these Disney Plus and Netflix and whatever Paramount Plus, I think they're all jumping in the game a little late, but whatever. But Netflix knows who you are, right? They probably know. I don't think they have as much data about you as Google does, but no one does. They're not tracking your browsing experiences all over the bloody internet. But still, what opportunity do you think that's going to open up for advertisers, for businesses? Do you think it's just going to be? Do you think it's just going to be like, for instance, the people that can afford the NFL ads to advertise on those platforms, or will Mr. Mom and Pop Shop be able to play in that game?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it will be fairly democratic in terms of who can, I mean, it'll, yes. So lots of different elements of this. So at the moment, from what I have heard or read, is that at the first rollout of offering will only be contextual. So initially on Netflix specifically, I can't speak to the other platforms at the moment, but advertisers will be able to buy, say, a 15-second spot or 15-second spots in, I don't know, the Gilmore Girls. That popped into my head,
enough.
But it did.
Yeah, sure.
So against that, the person or the profile who you assume would be watching that show. I think it'll be a scale. It'll be like CPMs are going to vary depending on the show, depending on the the target that you're going after. I really can't. I don't think anyone can say too much about it, because all these deals and these technology developments are quite tight-lipped when it comes to big partnerships. That was just released. They chose Microsoft, so we'll see how it goes. I think what's interesting, and I just alluded to this a minute ago, but in terms of who we're going to be able to reach, like the person who can afford the $16.99 a month to avoid ads on Netflix is probably still going to avoid ads on Netflix by paying the $16.99 a month. And what I would think, and maybe I'm wrong, because I'm often wrong and I'm learning all the time, but people in those socioeconomic, household income above X are not going to be as reachable on the free ad streaming tier of Netflix, because they can afford to choose not to. So if you're a brand like a Rolex or a Tagore or a Porsche or whatever, and you're looking to reach those users, like Netflix may not be the place for you, because the people that are opting for the ad-supported tier can't afford or choose not to, because they're spending their money, elsewhere. So I think that's something to watch.
Much sense. I was thinking they're going to make it even more expensive for people, but maybe they'll make a less expensive tier that's ad-supported rather than a more, you know what I mean? I thought they were going to go up and not down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well,
like there's going to be a $25.99 to have no ads, but hey, they may keep it at $16.99 and create a $9.99. For ad support. I don't know.
Yeah, and they could be sneaky too, because I think of all the time and it irritates me. So I'm someone who pays. I pay not to get served ads when I am in an immersive experience, right? So if I'm listening to a podcast or I'm watching Netflix, I don't want ads. That's a great benefit. I will pay for that. Spotify, I paid for Spotify Premium, but over the last 6 months or so, Spotify's gotten around that. So when you pay for Spotify Premium, you are paying to have an ad-free streaming experience.
Even when you're listening to the shows, they take out the ads?
Yeah, technically, but not anymore. So it used to be there were no ads at all. But since podcast advertising has been evolving over the last, very quickly, last couple of years, they have this dynamic. It's not the dynamic insertions to just interrupt you. It's the host reads, which of course you can't get away with. Or pod bites, where they actually place them in the podcast as opposed to
right into the direct recording rather than insert. I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So maybe Netflix will end up doing something like that. Like when you go to the movies and you get served the beginning of the movie. Theater is 6 ads for cars. Could be something like that, but I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to watch how it unfolds.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Yeah. I mean, I pay for YouTube Premium to not have ads.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Because I don't want to be bothered.
People will pay for it.
Yeah. There's a whole ton of other benefits that come with it though. But anyway, that's very interesting that Netflix is partnering with Microsoft. I mean, this is like fresh off the presses sort of deal. It's not that old news. I mean, it's like 13 days old from the time of this recording.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's old news in this industry.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Isn't it? In this, in the digital world, that's old news. I wonder if Microsoft will end up buying them. Any predictions?
I figure if they were going to buy them, they would have done it.
They would have done it already
instead of partnered.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, like I say, I'm wrong all the time. I'm learning.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows, what that, I mean, I'd have to read what the partnership means. I mean, obviously there's going to be revenue sharing of some kind. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's exciting. Yeah, it's very significant. And the fact that they chose Microsoft as their partner is very interesting. Well, is there anything else like what's one big takeaway you want people to get from this episode? I mean, I know that there's a ton of other things we could talk about, but if there was one takeaway you wanted to share about media buying and what we've been talking about, does anything come to mind specifically? Or something that we missed?
Something we missed? Yeah, I think it will depend, again, like everything, who we're talking to. So if our audience right now is
mainly agency owners
and media buyers, or that I don't want to presume I'm telling anyone anything they don't know, but it's a conversation that I have over and over. And I think it's this just fundamental importance of always looking at your funnel in a comprehensive manner. And, so I always mention this, but the biggest brand advertisers, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, spend 60% of their marketing budget on awareness and 40% on performance marketing. So,
wow.
Yeah. And so when we have clients that come to us and
budget.
Say,
wow.
Yes, on a brand marketing. So we have clients come to us and say, we want, 10%, sure, we can run some awareness ads, but 90% we want to drive conversion and we want to make return. And we say, well, think about the long term. And that's always the example I give, and taking into account the consumer journey and experience and how we respond, like the art of it. How would we as consumers respond to advertising? We will purchase, but we need to be, cultivated a little bit. And I think we also need to be finding new consumers. And it's not like anyone needs to learn about McDonald's. We all know about McDonald's.
We are
how the brand marketing, is integral to longevity. So it's something that I'm always sort of having conversations around. Yeah.
Right on. Hey, how can our listeners connect with you online if they want to do so?
Sure. Yeah. Could hit me up on LinkedIn. Just my name, Avril Tomlin Hood. Send me a message on LinkedIn. Email avril@idearebel.com.
Okay.
And probably best. Yeah, both of those places.
Sure. So LinkedIn or email
online.
Or going on idearebel.com. They'll find your profile there too, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know they will. I've been on there. So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you here. There's so many other things we could have talked about, and I'd love to have you back again. I mean, we talk about over the top, this whole video thing and the possibilities of that and other such things. So I would love to have you back if you'd be willing. Yeah,
absolutely. Anytime. This is a lot of fun.
Right on.
Thanks for having me.
Well, no problem. And I just want to thank you, and you have a rest of your day, and make sure you tune into the next episode of eCoffee with Experts to learn the latest in digital marketing trends and what's happening. Thanks very much. Have a great day.